Welcome to another Build Insights video. Today we'll be taking a look at the build out for the Portico of Octavia in Rome. Known as the Porticus Octaviæ in Latin, this is the second subsection of Phase 3 in my years-long effort to recreate all of the ancient city, circa mid-4th century CE. This wedge-shaped subsection comes in at around 8,000 bricks, bringing the running total for the entire SPQR diorama to about 230,000 bricks. It also connects directly to the Circus Flaminius, which we explored in the previous video. Thank you to all my members on Patreon who are seeing these build insights several weeks earlier than my general audience. Patrons also get insights into the design process for my work, and the design insights for the Portico of Octavia were shared all the way back in November 2024. If you'd like to become a member and get access to all this and much more, you'll find a link in the description. We're starting off with the eponymous Portico of Octavia, the ruins of which are prominently visible today in the Jewish ghetto of Rome. The precinct was roughly 400 by 525 feet and was first built around the mid-2nd century BCE when it was dedicated as the Portico of Metellus, commemorating the Roman praetor's decisive victory in northern Greece. The Porticus was later restored under Augustus sometime around 27 BCE following his successful campaigns in Dalmatia. Around this time, it was also rededicated to Augustus' sister Octavia, thus enshrining it as the Porticus Octaviæ, the name by which it's most remembered. Tiled in either marble or travertine, the enclosed plaza within the Porticus was undoubtedly home to various works of classical art, not unlike most monumental precincts throughout ancient Rome. We know that Metellus brought back the turma, or squadron, of Alexander the Great by the Greek sculptor Lysippos as spoils from his victories in Macedonia. This group of antique bronzes have been lost to time, but were once prominently displayed in the Porticus Octaviæ. The Atlas of Ancient Rome by Carandini et al. Suggests that they may have been arrayed in formation along the southern wall of the Porticus. The Portico of Octavia was first rebuilt by Augustus, but was later damaged or destroyed by a fire in 80 CE that decimated most of the Campus Martius. It was likely rebuilt shortly after by Domitian, which is true for most of the grand monuments of the Campus Martius, which went up in flames in 80, only to be restored by Domitian within the next few years. Whenever I'm reconstructing a porticus enclosed by perimeter walls and columns, I tend to build these aspects first, that way I'm not constantly colliding with more fragile or decorative aspects within the plaza during the building process. For the perimeter column seen here, I took inspiration from this particular reconstruction of the Porticus Octaviæ, which shows alternating green and yellow marble columns. This is fairly exemplary of precincts which were rebuilt throughout the city's history, often using whichever materials were most available at the time of restoration. This translated well to sand green representing giallo antico, as well as dark tan representing a darker shade of Tunisian yellow marble. The Portico of Octavia was restored one final time in 203 CE by the Severan emperors Septimius Severus and his son Caracalla. We know this because of an inscription left on the reconstructed propylaeum at the front of the Porticus. This inscription is still visible today along the Via del Portico de Ottavia. The central features of the Porticus Octaviæ were the Temple of Jupiter Stator and the Temple of Juno Regina. The older of the two was the Temple of Juno Regina seen here. Originally built in 179 BCE, this temple was vowed to Queen Juno prior to a battle in 187 BCE. Roman officials actually had a habit of vowing to build temples ahead of a military endeavor as a way of legitimizing their actions in the eyes of the gods. A few decades later, the original builder of this porticus, Metellus, had a nearly identical temple dedicated to Jupiter Stator built alongside of that of Juno Regina, and both were centered amidst the surrounding portico. The temple of Jupiter Stator was distinct in that it was periptico sine postico, which is just an esoteric way of saying it had freestanding columns on three sides with a solid back wall. The Portico of Octavia was followed up by the lesser-known Porticus Philippi in the late 1st century CE. This newer porticus was built by Lucius Marcius Philippus, a relative of Augustus, to celebrate his military triumph in Spain. The two porticos were directly attached, although the latter was significantly smaller, an aspect which I made efforts to distinguish by featuring thinner columns along the portico in the form of white wand elements. The inner plaza of the Porticus Philippi also featured incomparable works of Hellenic art. In this case, it was a statuary group of bronze muses, represented here in gold statuettes. These tied in thematically with the temple at the center of it all, the Ides Hercules Musarum, or Temple of Hercules and the Muses. This temple was round and therefore classified as a tholos, and it was first built in 187 BCE, predating the Porticus by about 3 centuries. We know that the open-air plaza of the Porticus Philippi was shaded by trees, thanks to their presence on a fragment of the marble Forma Urbis plan, which used to adorn one of the walls in the Forum of Peace. Beyond the major landmarks of the Campus Martius, I'm often left to figure out how to reconstruct the rest of the city on my own. In general, the street grids can be surmised from fragments of ancient streets that either no longer exist or are just below some of the vias in modern Rome. Most of the remnants of ancient above-ground structures are built into modern foundations or basements, which helps to indicate the types of structures that once stood in the ancient city. Partial remains of a floor mosaic can be extrapolated into courtyard ornaments of a lavish domus. A series of parallel walls might just have been rows of storerooms in an ancient Herreum. And an amalgam of uniform merchant stalls along the ground floor could indicate a multi-story insula with several residential floors above. Lots of people ask me if I'd ever consider making an imaginary architectural piece, and I usually just point out this diorama, which features a majority of hypothetical reconstructions. Lastly, here's the intersection of the Portico of Octavia and Circus Flaminius subsections. The two regions are carefully aligned and slightly overlapping, with the Porticus on the Circus acting as a keystone to firmly link the two. I hope you enjoyed these insights into the Portico of Octavia. If you want to see the whole thing put together with the rest of the SPQR diorama, you can check out the renderings available on my Patreon. Aside from supporting my work, Patreon membership also gets you early access to all the Insight videos. And if you'd like to see the diorama in person, you can catch the debut of Phase 3 later this year at an upcoming event in Rome. I'll be sure to share those details as soon as I can. In the meantime, thanks for following along, and I'll see you in the next one.